Hello Kel67 Gaming. I'm back again to share another one of my favourite 5 lists. This time I'm going to be taking you through my favourite 5 games for the original Game Boy. When I was a kid, the original Game Boy was something of a game changer. This was something that you could carry about with you. You could have interchangeable games for it, and also games that you recognised. This was something that previously, although I'm sure that there was interchangeable game handhelds before, what we were used to was Game & Watch, Tiger Electronics and Grandstand also had LCD games which they marketed, but they were just one game. You obviously couldn't carry a lot of those about, and they got old very quickly because obviously the limitations of those old LCD games was that the whole game had to be played on a single screen. So the Game Boy came along and was revolutionary. But as I said, as a kid, we just couldn't believe that you could have essentially a console in your pocket. I know that for a lot of people, you'll have a look at the monochrome graphics and dot matrix screen and this sort of thing, and it can be a bit off-putting because it's so different to what you're used to. Here in the UK especially, I had grown up with microcomputers and was used to playing games on the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. Now, because of the hardware limitations of that system, a lot of the games were monochromatic, albeit the background colours may have changed, but it was a similar sort of thing. So the culture shock wasn't quite so great for people like myself who had grown up on those types of systems. And it had an awesome library of games. The other big downside, of course, for the original Game Boy was you needed a light source. We didn't do backlit screens back then, and now I don't know if that was a cost-saving measure from Nintendo, or whether it was just that they wanted to prolong battery life, because I mean that big brick took 4 AA batteries and got through them quick enough as it was. I'd hate to think how quickly it would get through those batteries if it had a backlit screen. However, times have changed, and if you're a modern Game Boy player like myself, we have the joys of these modern backlit Game Boy screens. This particular model is, I'll just turn the volume down a bit there. This particular model is the GB Boy Color, so this will play original Game Boy and Game Boy Color. I don't know if you can see, I've got Nintendo World Cup in there at the moment, which is original Game Boy game. This is what I would have loved to have had as a kid, with the backlit screen so you can play it anywhere. Unfortunately, it's not what we got, but because it was so new, cutting edge technology, we were prepared to forgive it. Any technical limitations that it did have. So, with that being said, I think it's time to move on to my list. So this game is my 5th favourite game for the original Game Boy. that game is Blaster Master Junior. Well, that's what it was called in Europe. I believe it was Blaster Master Boy in North America and Bomber King 2 in Japan. If you think that looks a bit familiar, it does look very much like Hudson Soft's Bomberman games. There's a very good reason for this. The game itself was originally designed as a sequel to Robo Warrior, I think it was called, which was a spin-off of the Bomberman series. Now I'm not sure why Hudson Soft didn't release the game themselves. This one obviously been published by Sunsoft, but being a Bomberman clone is not a bad thing, and you would think taking away the multiplayer element of Bomberman would destroy the game, and had they just stuck to the single screen PvP Bomberman scenario, then yes, it absolutely would have ruined the game. However, this has got a bit of exploration to it. There's maps to go around, different types of enemies. Keeps the game interesting, even playing it one player, which is something that I would never have thought, that you could get away with a one-player Bomberman game essentially. But this game does seem to pull it off really quite well. It's my fifth favourite game, as I said. If you're at all interested in the Bomberman games, and I most certainly am, from the first one on the NES right up to the last one on the Switch, I love them all. This is a game that I would recommend that you look out for and pick it up if you find it. So with that one down, we must be up to my fourth favourite game for the original Game Boy. So this one is Kid Dracula, a platformer game made by Konami. This is a kind of spin-off of the Castlevania series, where you play as Kid Dracula, who's been challenged by Galamoth and has to go through all these platforming stages and challenge Galamoth at the end to complete the game. As you start the game, Kid Dracula doesn't remember any of his vampiric powers. The only one he can remember is how to turn into a bat. And as you go through the game, he remembers more and more of what abilities he does have. It's a cutesy game for sure, but it's got a decent amount of challenge to it. What I particularly like about this one is the larger sprites and slower paced gameplay just seem to work for me. A lot of games, when you played them on the original Game Boy, on the original hardware with the dot matrix screen, if the action was too fast, then there would be a blur in the image, and it would be very, very difficult to see exactly what was happening. It was almost as if the games could run too quickly for the screen. Obviously with the new backlit screens, as I showed you earlier, that's no longer an issue, but it was something that was definitely a problem with the original hardware. This doesn't suffer from that because it's a slower paced game. Because you've got bigger sprites, you can't go through the screens quickly because you can't see so far ahead. But yes, it's just a great fun platformer and a nice oddity for anyone who likes the Castlevania series. So that was my fourth favourite. Which means the time has come for the halfway point in this list, which is my third favourite game for the original Game Boy. So number 3 is a game called Hammerin Harry. I don't actually know a lot about this game other than it's a huge amount of fun. Obviously it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up game where you're swinging a hammer, hence the name Hammerin Harry. It does get upgraded, as you would have seen in the gameplay there, to a massive mace, and you go through the levels defeating all the enemies in a kind of in a Streets of Rage double dragging kind of way. Actually, aesthetically, it reminds me an awful lot of Cobra on the Spectrum, which was a game I absolutely loved. Doesn't play quite like that because obviously there's no guns and what have you. And the game itself, although you have the beat 'em up elements where you're encountering lots of enemies walking towards you, flying towards you. You also have, you'll have noticed those bullets come flying at you. So there is an element of that in it as well. They obviously come at you much quicker, gives it an added level of challenge. And as I said, apart from how well the game plays, I don't actually know a lot about it. Published by Irem, I think they done Kung Fu Master, which I also really like, or Kung Fu as it was on the NES. Just a great solid game. Would like to talk about it more, but I don't know any backstory about the game. I just know it's a very solid game. So that was my third favourite. Which means this is the penultimate entry in this list. My second favourite game for the original Game Boy. So it appears to have taken this long before a puzzle game gets onto the list. The Game Boy was brilliant for puzzle games. Puzzle games just work on the go. That's why they're so popular on mobile phones or cellular phones today, because you can play them in short bursts. Gets your brain thinking. You don't have to have quick reflexes or anything like this. Although you do have semi-quick reflexes for this one, because of the nature of the game. Obviously, Tetris was the puzzle game that everyone knows from the Game Boy. But this, for me, is everything that Tetris was and more. You know, if you liked the quicker paced puzzling game, that the Fallen Tetrominos gave you. Well, in this game, what you are is you're basically a ghost. You have a bubble that you have to guide through a maze, and you do that by blowing the bubble. Obviously, if it hits any obstacles or hits the wall of any of the levels, the bubble bursts and you lose the level. So you've got that way. You may have to blow it one way, quickly get round to the other side of the bubble to blow it back another way. So it gives it that element of time being against you, if you will. There's also a countdown timer at the bottom of the screen, so you can't just muck about forever on these levels. The other thing that I think was very memorable about Tetris was the tune. But did you see the gameplay and did you hear the tune? That is one hell of an earworm there. It just gets into your head and it stays there. It's going to be with me for the rest of the week after capturing the footage for that. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But that's not a bad thing, because it's quite a cheery little tune. So that is my second favourite game on the Game Boy. Which means that there's only one place left to go. And that one place is my favourite game of all time on the original Game Boy. Now this is a game by the master himself, Shigeru Miyamoto. He may be more famous for Mario, Zelda, Star Fox, Pikmin, Donkey Kong, F-Zero, but when it comes to the Game Boy, this was his greatest work. This is Mole Mania, where you play as Muddy Mole, as you saw in the little gameplay clip there. Your wife and kids get kidnapped and you have to find your way back to them. It's simply going through levels, puzzle based, because you work on two planes. Being a mole, you can dig, so if you get to a dead end, simply go underground and see if you can tunnel your way under it. It's a great gameplay mechanic. As I say, that's just a brilliant puzzler. Really makes you think, some of the later levels especially, and that's why it's my favourite game. You can play it in very short bursts because of the single screen element of a lot of the levels. Well, all the levels, I think. So you've got that very short bursts of this puzzling game, which really puts the old grey matter to work. I just love the game. I'd love to talk about it for hours, but unfortunately I really can't. A game like Hammerin Harry, there's not a lot that I actually know about the game itself, apart from obviously the guy that created it, and the fact that it's just a wonderful game that anybody who's got any interest in collecting for the Game Boy, you should be picking this up as soon as you can. It's just a brilliant, brilliant game. And that's my list. Now, I always say this, if you agree with me, whilst I might applaud your good taste, it's a bit boring. And you shouldn't really agree with me on this thing, because I've left out all the big hitters. I'm not a Nintendo fanboy, so I don't feel bad about leaving some things out if I don't appreciate them. Super Mario World isn't in my list. The reason for that is, I think I went over this briefly when I was talking about Kid Dracula, is the speed of the game and the small sprites. Actually, the blurring on the original hardware for the Game Boy made it borderline unplayable at times. That's just my opinion. I haven't put a Zelda game in there. Oh, no Mario, no Zelda. I didn't pick Tetris. I did pick two puzzle games, because puzzle games on the Game Boy is just always a joy, but Tetris wasn't one that I picked. The one that I showed you at the beginning of the game, Nintendo World Cup. I play it all the time, but I didn't pick it. Maybe it's your favourite. Whatever the case is, tell me down below what you would have put in the list, what you would have left off the list, and the reasons for. That's obviously be something that I'd be very interested to know. You may know a game that I don't have that I should look out for, that I should try and get a hold of. So yeah, give me your thoughts in the comments below. But that's it for this list. If you haven't already, please leave a like on the video. You've been with me for quite a while if I'm still talking to you, so there must be something that you quite liked. So please hit the thumbs up. Don't hit the thumbs down. Oh, please don't. Hit thumbs up. I'll hit thumbs down if you don't like it. If you see this ugly face and think, oh god, I don't like that, hit thumbs down. But leave your feedback. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Well, obviously, like all small channels on YouTube, we're trying to grow, and the only way we're going to do that is by getting more subscribers. So you know where the button is down below, if you could do that. If you want to be updated with when we upload new videos, there's a bell icon to hit. Feel free to do that. And definitely, if you want to share this anywhere or with anyone, I would be very appreciative if you would do that. And that's it for this time. So most importantly, until next time, keep gaming.